This diplomatic spat between South Africa and Nigeria over xenophobic violence may be over. Or is it really? Is this a case of forgiving, forgetting and moving on? Or perhaps is this a case of forgive, but remember exactly what happened and how to avoid this in future? We'll be exploring that particular topic in detail tonight from Lagos and Johannesburg. Welcome to Global Business Africa. I'm Ramanyang. Here's what's coming up. A leading tobacco processor in Zimbabwe threatens to cut workers' pay over hours lost due to power outages. And we'll be talking about a delicacy in South Africa that may be a bit unconventional north of the Limpopo. Now, Nigeria's government does plan to claim compensation for its citizens who suffered losses in South Africa's recent wave of xenophobic attacks. There haven't been official figures of exactly how much was lost by Nigerians in South Africa, but estimates range from about $120,000 to well over $400,000. The matter is expected to be discussed at the next meeting of the South Africa-Nigeria Binational Commission that's periodically convened by the deputy presidents of both countries. Our starting point tonight is Johannesburg, South Africa, where Sumitra Naidu spoke to a Nigerian businessman who was attacked in an informal settlement of Tembisa.
Nigerian businessman Henry Chukwunyere is still in shock. He had made a home for his family in Tembisa, a township just outside Johannesburg, but recently he was forced to gather his family and run as a group of South Africans became violent.
About 300 men, they were wielding sticks and axes, singing Zulu song that their king has said that the foreigners should leave. So they began to break down our door, everything. So people were fleeing from their houses. So I grabbed my children and my wife. We started running. They were running after us, hitting us, hitting the people, stabbing the ones they could stab.
I didn't know that we escaped them because they were too vicious. They don't care whether you are a woman or whatever. You are carrying children or whatever, they don't care.
Chukwunyere and his wife moved to South Africa in 2010. They have 2 children and 1 on the way. Fatuma is 3 months pregnant. Together, the Chukwunyeres ran a food and clothing business in Tembisa.
We have lost our livelihood. We lost everything. These people, they took everything because they just come, you start running. No time. 1 minute could be too late for you.
Chukwunyere and his family have found safety at a refugee camp set up by the South African government. But he's devastated. He has lost everything.
I cannot find words to describe the people here. They have no human face. It's indescribable. So even when I see South Africans now, I am scared. So I want to leave. That is all what I'm asking for. I don't want anything. I just want to leave. I want to go with my family.
Chukwunyere and his family are now waiting to return to Nigeria. It might be a while before they can return to their country, but they're determined to get back home and have vowed to never return to South Africa. Sumitra Naidu, CCTV, Johannesburg.
South Africa's government plans for the establishment of a border management agency in order to curb illegal migration are at an advanced stage. The State Security Minister, David Maloba, told Parliament that the agency, led by the Department of Home Affairs, should be operational by 2016. According to Maloba, the effective control and management of South Africa's border security has now become critical, and illegal immigration is now a serious challenge. The government has set the Port of Cape Town as the pilot project for the Border Management Agency. According to the Department of Home Affairs, over 330,000 foreign nationals have overstayed their welcome in the country since 2010. Now let's get you some more details on that spat between Nigeria and South Africa. Deji Badmus is live right now in Lagos, the commercial capital, if you will, of Nigeria. Deji, initially there were varying figures of exactly how much would be demanded in compensation. Have the Nigerians in the diaspora and the federal government arrived at a number they both agree on?
Well, we do not know for sure if both sides have arrived at a particular figure, but we do know that initially the figure was put at 1.2 million rand. Now, that figure actually came from the Deputy High Commissioner of Nigeria to South Africa, but the Nigeria Union in South Africa, which is a union of Nigerians now living in South Africa, came out on sometime on the 26th of April. That would be like some 2 weeks ago now, to say that figure had actually risen to 4.6 million rand. In Nigeria, that would be 84 million naira. Now, has that figure changed? We do not know. But then the union said at that time that it was going to send that figure to the Nigerian government as the actual figure so that the Nigerian government could put that to the South African authority. As we speak, we are yet to get anything at all from the Nigerian government if it has indeed passed that figure on to the South African government, or if it has actually officially asked for compensation, because the whole issue of compensation actually came from Parliament. So, but the Nigerian government itself has actually not officially asked the South African government for compensation. We just have to wait and see how that plays out eventually, Rama.
Indeed, we did see a lot of sharp words, a lot of shade being thrown between these two countries right at the end of April. Looking at relations in the long term, however, has this latest episode really of recurring xenophobic violence, has it had a long-lasting effect on bilateral ties?
Well, I wouldn't think so, because do not forget, just about a week ago, President Jacob Zuma of South Africa actually placed a call to President Goodluck Jonathan, and we understand they had a frank conversation and a very cordial one, and that they actually mend fences. Remember, in the aftermath of the xenophobic attacks, of course, the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Nigeria here actually recalled the Nigerian High Commissioner to South Africa, both the Nigerian High Commissioner now and the Deputy. Eventually, it turned out President Goodluck Jonathan did not actually authorize that recall, and President Goodluck Jonathan has actually sanctioned the Permanent Secretary, that's a top civil servant in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Well, it would appear there have been some kind of fence mending. Both leaders have actually spoken, and we understand that President Jacob Zuma would actually be attending the inauguration of President-elect Muhammadu Buhari on the 29th of April. We also understand, Rama, that, of course, we have actually seen that. Just a few days ago, President-elect Buhari actually sent the former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, to South Africa. Of course, Atiku Abubakar has a close relationship with Jacob Zuma. I actually sent him there to lobby the South African government to support the Nigerian candidate now for the presidency of the African Development Bank. And so it would appear that officially both sides are trying to mend fences, and that, you know, they're trying to play things cool as we speak.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for your input. That's Teji Badmus keeping an eye on developments, of course, from the Nigerian perspective in Lagos. Now, let's move on to Nigeria. The biggest economy on the continent, is actually now using borrowed money to pay salaries, and all that's due to a slump in oil prices. Nigeria's finance minister revealed that the country is going through what she described as a difficult cash crunch. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala said the country is using already half of its borrowing allowance, and it's yet to release any funds for capital expenditure so far this year. Lawmakers approved a $23 billion budget for 2015 last week. At those levels, planned spending is about 3% lower than the prior budget. The budget also did take quite a bit longer than usual to get through Parliament, and that worsened the cash squeeze because of the closely fought general elections in March, which saw the incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan defeated. Parliament also approved a 90% cut in petrol subsidies. The government hopes to phase these out gradually, but it does run the risk of aggravating a fuel supply crisis in the country right now. Now, reports of power supply deficits from Nigeria to South Africa to Zimbabwe and elsewhere, they're nothing new on this program. We've covered them quite extensively. The response, however, is another story. This story comes out of Zimbabwe, where a leading tobacco processor wants to cut workers' pay due to hours lost in power outages. Now, tobacco processors in the country send their employees home during power cuts until normal supply has been restored. And now they want to factor in those lost hours into workers' pay. Needless to say, workers are not very happy. As Farai Mokhtar reports, this dispute is now threatening to spill over into the courts.
It's news that's not gone down well with these contract workers. They argue that if they've presented themselves at work on time, they should be paid, regardless of whether there is power or not. And they are planning to escalate their grievances.
It's inhuman for them to actually deduct the money that is due for the employees. They have to engage the workers. They have to engage workers at Works Council. And we need that. We have written actually a letter to the HR manager. And we ask them, and not only asking, but demand that they follow what is lawful.
They have a strong case based on existing labor laws that say employees cannot be penalized for factors beyond their control.
Where there are exceptions, an employer is supposed to sit with his Works Council and they arrive at an agreement and they must register that agreement with the appropriate NEC. It is a dispute of right and an unfair labor practice to actually outrightly deduct for conditions that are beyond the employee's control.
Tobacco processor Zimbabwe told CCTV it's not in a position to comment on the matter at this time. But the company's actions could be a sign of the times. Many companies here have been hit by the sporadic yet lengthy power cuts caused by the country's energy deficit. Changes to the country's labor laws providing for the changed circumstances are awaiting cabinet approval. The revisions will also pave the way for productivity-linked remuneration.
The requirements of productivity-based salaries are such that you need to set up a productivity center, which the Ministry of Labour is setting under the supervision of the International Labour Organization. But there has been some resistance from some sectors of the unions. They still want that culture of entitlement.
Wages remain a contentious issue here, and experts have been calling for the resuscitation of a tripartite negotiating forum, including government, labour and employers, to help come up with the most mutually acceptable labour laws and wage structures. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Quick run through equity markets here for you. There's a wave of results coming through, at least in Kenya. Tomorrow, one of the biggest listed firms over there, Safaricom, will be releasing its results as well. But of interest to us, South Africa, JSE All Share Index posting its biggest daily percentage decline in more than a month. Of course, triple effects coming through here from standoffs and jitters elsewhere across the world, given the fact that there's quite a bit of a sell-off on government bonds in the West, in the US, and of course Europe, and that of course has a knock-on effect on emerging market assets as well. We'll be looking at immigration as Britain heads to the polls on Thursday. And from trash to cash, we'll be looking at an Egyptian hopeful parliamentarians who sees potential in this dump site.
This report by the African Green Revolution Alliance says climate change will slash food output. Within the next 30 years, the number of malnourished people in sub-Saharan Africa could jump nearly 40%.
Welcome back to the program. We're about 15 minutes into the hour. You're still watching Global Business Africa. Now, the UK heads to the polls in a matter of hours. Citizens there will be casting their votes in what is being described as the tightest general election in decades. Prime Minister David Cameron and the opposition leader Ed Miliband are neck and neck in the polls right now. Experts say it's just about certain that neither one of them will be able to secure a parliamentary majority. So then, why are we covering a European story? Well, one of the hot button issues in this polls is immigration. And the major parties are having fairly contrasting policies. David Cameron and the Tories had promised to bring down net migration levels. Labour, on the other hand, essentially want to maintain it. Debates around migration include whether or not they are taking jobs. That fallacy still persists, even on that side of the pond, meant for UK citizens, as well as if they're strain on housing and social welfare too. Now, over the last couple of years, Western Europe, of course, has lurched more and more to the right. Nowhere is that more apparent than on immigration. One only needs to look at the performance of the far-right anti-immigration parties like UKIP, for example, in last year's elections to map to see that. Let's head over to London now. Kelly Lemon is live with more details on that. Kelly, in the run-up to this election, how big an issue is immigration?
Well, most of the parties have actually remained quiet about immigration, but it's a big issue and a lot of questions are being asked about future policies. Along with the National Health Service and UK economy, it's one of the top topics voters want to hear about. Now, the three main political parties all have plans to reform immigration policy. In fact, media reports are now suggesting a lack of detail on immigration, especially because the Conservative Party didn't keep their promise of reducing net migration coming into the UK. This is a sensitive topic with voters very divided over immigration laws. Now, the Labour Party is also still recovering from its last stint in office, and analysts say the more the main political parties talk about immigration, the more voters consider parties like UKIP, who are running on their anti-immigration policies.
Indeed, walk us through the positions of these main parties on immigration, and especially given the fact that these polls are fairly tight. Might they compromise those positions if they have to get into a coalition with, say, the SNP or the Liberal Democrats?
Well, that's certainly a topic for discussion. It's become clearer and clearer in this election that this is a topic British people want to talk about. So whichever government rules the country post-election, we're likely to see a focus on net immigration numbers coming into the UK. In fact, last year, net migration into the UK stood at 298,000. That's around 3 times higher than the target. And we're also likely to see more focus on those leaving the country who are quite often well qualified. With Europe, we have seen gains from outside parties like UKIP as voters send a clear message, a message we may well see in this election.
Indeed. Final question to you, Kelly. So once the polls are over, new parliament in place, new prime minister, as it were, what next for the UK's immigration policy? Should we expect any fundamental changes moving forward?
Well, that's certainly a possibility, and that's certainly being discussed at the moment. And, you know, what we're seeing for sure at the moment is a lot of backroom dealings happening. As we speak, parties are looking to negotiate terms in case there is a hung parliament. Having said that, immigration may pose more problems to seal a coalition. So it's certainly a topic of conversation at the moment. Now, some parties are more inclined to cut back on net migration than others, but the overall focus is on identifying the rights and responsibilities of immigrants entering the UK. And the most extreme of the views is held by the independent party UKIP in favour of an Australian-type points system where there's a clear cap on migrants with a possible limit of about 50,000 skilled migrants annually.
Indeed, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for that. That's Kelly Lemon live in London. Of course, if you're looking for reports of the vote in the UK, we'll certainly have them right here for you on CCTV. Now, speaking of elections, Egypt is yet to hold its parliamentary polls. That, however, isn't stopping prospective legislators from dreaming big. Meet Hussein El Said, an aspiring legislator who wants to transform a rubbish-strewn wasteland into an industrial park, which he hopes will support local enterprises. In What's Hot Tonight, we find out exactly how he plans to do that.
A grim view from an apartment block in Kanka, a satellite city on the edge of Cairo. But where some see waste, others see opportunity. A prospective Member of Parliament, Hussein El Said, has big plans for this landfill site and for local businesses. El Said says Kanka city has living standards 65% below those of other poorer areas in Cairo. At the March Economic Forum held in Sharm el Sheikh, he launched his Kanka 2020 project.
The Kanka 2020 project will raise living standards by 175% and provide 50,000 job opportunities for young people, women, and for all residents of Kanka. We are talking about a set of very small projects with full funding for the residents of Kanka that is directly related to heavy industry in Obuor. This project will improve not only Kanka but also the surrounding areas.
The project centers on the creation of a small and medium enterprise industrial park and aims to create a network of local SMEs. Successful applicants will be given a loan in kind, typically a workshop and capital for specific economic activities that link to the production chain at nearby Obuor's large-scale metal, paper and plastics industries. Small, local businesses will own their own company and hold shares in the overarching holding company.
Today, Egypt's economic development can only be achieved through creating a new middle class. And this will not happen through the redistribution of wealth that does not exist in Egypt, but through creating a revolution and a new wealth for Egyptians, especially for those like the residents of Kanka who are disadvantaged.
The SME network will be established this year as an informal social network, and the industrial park will be built once finance is in place. Local businesses have already submitted loan applications. The finance will be available in the coming months, and Phase 1 workshops will be set up by the end of 2015. The initial phase will see 10,000 SMEs establishing workshops. Kanka 2020 grant applicant Mustafa Khalid explains why he wants to be part of the new venture.
Our dream is to have projects that provide us with a fixed monthly income to live on that covers all our needs.
The holding company will also pay taxes on behalf of the SMEs, promoting government plans to expand the tax base and bringing workers into the formal economy. The project is being carried out in partnership with an Italian energy company and its Egyptian franchise, and plans to provide electricity to the SME industrial park. Valdi Karolsa, CCTV.
Right then, commodities, very interesting stories here for you. It's a tale of two things that we're looking at in detail. Crude oil, of course, still very much ascendant, up 2.9% in trading today, 69.56 a relevant number. The one that is of interest to you, however, is cocoa. Ghana apparently is having an entirely different crop failure. They forecast about 1 million tons of output this year. Unfortunately, they're only going to be able to produce around 690, 700,000 or so tons. And that's one of the reasons why you're seeing cocoa futures on ice essentially moving up about 5% or so in the last 2 weeks. We'll be talking about walkie-talkies next, not the gadgets, but rather chicken head and chicken feet. Apparently they're quite popular in South Africa. We'll tell you why.
Africa is not one country.
And Africa is not one story.
But as Africans, we do share one belief.
What more offensive
that whatever the challenge, we will overcome.
CCTV Africa brings you unrivaled coverage.
From the fight against Ebola to the fight for greater freedom.
From the figures seeking your vote to the figures shaping your economy.
This is Guy Henderson reporting from the jungles of East.
And all the reasons to celebrate the diversity of life on this great continent.
Welcome back. Let's talk about chicken heads and chicken feet. In some sub-Saharan countries, yes, Kenya, I'm looking at you, these parts are often discarded. But in South African townships, they're increasingly popular. They're affectionately known as walkie-talkies, and they provide both an affordable meal and a source of income for local traders. Sumitra Naidu visited a former South African musician turned entrepreneur who's ventured into the business of walkie-talkies.
Lloyd Peltier was a musician before he delved into the chicken industry.
I met a good friend of mine along the way who owned a chicken factory that supplies pick and place chickens. So I said to him, well, I'd like to get into the chicken business. So he says, well, why don't you come in and get involved in the chicken shops?
3 years later, Peltier is running his own successful chicken business.
We sell everything from soup cuts, bones, heads and feet packets, so we do quite a variety. Fresh chicken, chicken wings.
But his biggest seller by far are chicken heads and feet. Considered as popular township cuisine, Peltier discovered a niche market for his chicken offcuts. He currently sells 3 tons of chicken feet daily. He gets his supplies from a local plant that produces for big retail supermarkets. Prime cuts such as breasts, wings and thighs are packaged for mainstream retailers. The chicken heads and feet, however, are not popular in stores. But Peltier saw the demand for these cuts in the townships.
People buy the heads and feet from us, and they go and resell in the locations, the rural areas. They sell each foot for like R1. They cook it.
Yeah, it's very difficult to find a job, so I decided to go and buy these chicken legs and sell here so that my children can survive. I can get money for clothes for my children and get food for my children, for my family. Everything I get it from these legs.
For Peltier, the chicken business is more appetizing than music.
I enjoy the chicken business a lot more because it creates a lot more jobs for people in the community, which to me is a lot more valuable than playing music. Creating jobs, creating sustainable business for the economy, stimulating the economy is definitely what I enjoy most.
Peltier has 8 chicken shops in the Gauteng province. He's hoping to double that over the next 3 years. Sumitra Nadu, CCTV, Johannesburg.
Now, there's a joke around that story. Kenyan poultry exporters could actually move their produce to South Africa, but given the fact that South Africa and the US are having a fight about that sort of thing, probably want to get access to that market anyway. Right, quick run through the currencies anyway. The Kenyan Central Bank, the Monetary Policy Committee, had a meeting today, decided to hold rate. Some economists expected it. Others, however, are questioning a couple of things. One, the effect, of course, on the shutdown of remittance firms in the country. That wasn't factored in, never showed up anywhere in the MPC statement. And essentially, is this a bet that rainfall moving forward in the long range will actually tame food inflation? We'll have to wait and see. That said, here's what's in the pipeline for tomorrow's program. The South African Travel Indaba, that kicks off in Durban. We'll have someone over there providing quite a bit of comprehensive coverage. We'll also be looking at an entrepreneur in Kigali who's got Rwandans tapping into the $30 million global mushroom industry around the world. But for now, we'll leave it there on this edition of Global Business Africa. As always, I like hearing what you think about what we do around here. globalbusinessafrica@cctv.com is the email address to use. And of course, Facebook and Twitter are your ports of call for a lot more content. Thank you for watching. See you in 23 hours. I'm Ramanyan.